Hello and welcome to the Nikon D5200 channel. We realised the other day that despite the fact that we've done all these videos on the D5200, we haven't actually done a review of the Nikon D5200. So here it is. It's obviously follows on from the Nikon D5100, which itself was a really good camera and got some great plaudits when that came out, three and a half years ago. The Nikon 5100 boasted a 16 megapixel chip and an articulated screen, and it was considered at the time a huge advance. Now obviously technology moves on apace, and 3 years later 16 megapixels doesn't quite seem to cut it. And so the D5200 has come out with 24 megapixels. Now that really is impressive. It gives you a much greater dynamic range. It gives you some really big file sizes, talking about 69, 70 megabyte file sizes. You know, you can stick these on a billboard. And that's really one of the great pluses of the D5200, the large file size. Obviously, there are corollaries to that. So in order to deal with these files, they've put in a new Expeed 3 processor. And that means that it processes the files that much more quickly. It gives you very great speed in terms of sorting the files through. It gives you some tremendous clarity and some great color reproduction. It's also moved up the autofocus points. The D5100 had 11, whereas the D5200 has 39, and that gives you a great deal more ability to focus where you want to focus, and it's particularly good for things like landscapes, etc. And it also helps to maintain good quality focus through stills and through video. And the final of the big four changes is the metering system, which again is designed really, I guess, to cope with the technological advances, particularly in terms of the file size, and that enables you to get better, faster data so that you can work on quality of exposure, quality of autofocus, and quality of white balance. Now, incidentally, most of what I've just said here is covered in greater detail on our website, so if you want to have a look at that and read about it and see examples of what we've shot, etc., then by all means do that. And if you are considering buying a D5200, then you'll see there are some great deals on that website too. So this is the Nikon D5200. This is not the lens that you'd get with it. This is a 12 to 24 millimeter lens. The kit lens that you would normally get with it, although you can buy it as a body without a kit lens, but if you buy it with a kit lens, the normal one you'd get would be the 18 to 55 millimeter lens, which is a really good all-round lens. So if you're considering either moving over to Nikon, or you don't have any Nikon lenses of your own, and you're considering whether to buy the kit lens with it, if it's the 1855, I would say go with it because it's a good lens. The other kit lens which is available is the 18 to 105 millimeter, and that is not good or as good. It's not as highly rated, and it's not regarded pretty much all throughout the range from 18 to 105 as good quality and as crisp and as clear as the 18 to 55 is, obviously between 18 and 55. So if you wanted that extra distance, that extra focal length, our advice would be probably to get the 1855 and then perhaps get the 55 to 200 mm after that, which is also a really good lens and actually surprisingly cheap. So our advice would be to get the 1855 to start off with and then build up like you always do with most other camera systems. There are some more subtle changes, of course. The frame speed has gone up slightly. You can get 5 frames per second instead of 4, which doesn't quite make it a sports camera, but it's still pretty good. There's a much better battery life for this. It uses the same batteries as the 5100, but it actually seems to be far more economical with that source of power, which is very good, particularly when you think that it sucks up a lot of power with the articulated viewing screen, which we'll go on to later. It offers, in terms of video, 1080 and 60 interlaced, or 50 interlaced, depending on which system you're running, which is an advantage, I guess, though we may come on to that later too. It's about the same weight as the 5100. It's about a pound basically. It's not a big body as a camera body goes, but it is quite well made in the sense that it's quite grippable. And as you can see, I can hold it like this, being fairly confident that it's not going to fall. This gripper here, where the battery is quite deep and quite angular, so it makes it very easy to hold on to. Of course, if you've got very big hands, you might want to put a battery grip on the bottom, which would also give you the advantage of having two batteries and therefore extending life further. But in terms of it being a fairly compact and decent sized body to hold and to work with, then it's pretty good. The ISO range goes from 100, which seems to be the minimum, the standard minimum these days, up to 25,600, which again is pretty good and makes it a very good camera for low light photography. And you can also shoot, depending on your requirements, either JPEG, RAW, or JPEG and RAW, which is a really good way, particularly if you want to have the double saving of your images, and also be able to use them and work on them as a raw image, which you may want to if you want to blow them up really big or do some specific changes to them. Apart from the file size, which is a huge bonus, the autofocus is really impressive. It's a 39-point autofocus, which is the kind of systems you'd find in far more expensive Nikon cameras. And it really brings out some really good qualities with this D5200. It's extremely fast autofocus, it's very accurate, and it enables you to do tracking, to do single shots obviously, but also it works really well with continuous autofocus, and it's got a great face detection system in as well. So you can pretty much in fact leave the autofocus to be autofocus. You don't have to worry too much about manual focus or overriding, because this can really do it for you. One of the huge pluses about the D5000 series as a whole is the articulated screen. The D5100 came out with the articulated screen, everybody went wow, and the D5200 has the same, pretty much the same articulated screen. And it is really genuinely impressive. In fact, once you've had the screen and you've used it a few times, you wonder really how you did without it before. It's particularly useful for video because it means that you can shoot low shots or high shots without having to get onto a ladder or crawl around on the floor, because you can tilt the screen as you want it to go. It is really clever, and obviously you can also tilt it all the way around and stick it on the back of the camera so that you can see what you're doing through the viewing screen if that's what you want. So it's a really big plus. Canon have a similar articulated screen with some of their cameras, and they are touch screens. This one isn't a touch screen. I guess you pay your money and you take your choice. Personally, I'm not a great fan of touch screens. I don't think that they will work terribly well in those circumstances when you might want to rely on them. If you're wearing gloves, for example, as most people end up doing if they're shooting outside, particularly in Scotland, then touchscreens aren't really going to be very much use. And in fact, if the camera is designed so that touchscreen is the way that you operate these things, then it's actually going to be a negative rather than a plus. So I would say the articulated screen is brilliant, particularly for video, but also actually really good for stills. Touchscreen, I could take it or leave it. The good thing about this camera is that when you've got the viewing screen on, you can still use autofocus through it, so that you can actually use it for video and use it in that way. And when we've shot video on it, for example, we've had a loop and looked on the back screen and used that to make sure that everything is bang on in terms of focus, and the quality of the back screen is sufficient for us to be able to do that. So this is a real plus for this kind of camera. This camera, like every other, has a fistful of modes that you can operate, from portrait to landscape to nighttime, etc., etc., which you can play with to your heart's content. But the 6 main ones obviously are there, which are the auto without flash, manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, and program. Frankly, you probably don't need anything outside of those 6, but they're all there and they're fun to play with when you've got the time. But the thing to remember about this camera in particular is that it seems really to have been designed for video. Far more than most of the other Nikon cameras. This one is stills and video camera. The articulated screen, as we've mentioned before, is superb for video. It's also useful for stills, but it also shoots in video 1080 and 720. 1080 will give you the options of, if you're in the States, shooting 60i or 30p, and if you're in the UK or Europe, it will be 50i, 25p. 60i, 50i, frankly, they're probably not worth it because when all is said and done, they don't give you the same sort of quality as progressive P does. So I would stick, if it was me, to 30p or 25p. The great thing about 720 is it will give you 60p, which, whilst it means obviously that it's slightly lower HD quality, not full HD quality as they say, it does enable you to shoot slow motion stuff, which is really handy, and still get a really high degree of quality. The other good things about this in terms of video is that this has a stereo mic. The D5100 only had a mono sound mic. This is a stereo built-in mic, and it also has an external socket. So if you want to have a stills camera that will shoot video, this is probably about one of the best you can probably get. So, in conclusion, this is a really good quality camera. The price point, which is what, £500, $700, the type of quality you get for that sort of price point is really superb. Obviously, we've talked about the 24 megapixel file size, which is fantastic, and frankly, it stuffs Canon at any range almost, but particularly at this range. It is a market leader. It's a superb camera for low light photography. The 5 frames per second gives it a head and shoulders above most cameras of this price range for sports photography. There's very minimal noise in terms of the low light stuff. It does control noise very well. The articulated screen is a real bonus, and as I say, once you start using an articulated screen, you really do wonder what happened and how you did it beforehand. The 39 focus points, as I say, put it in a category of cameras which are far more expensive and greater quality. So that's a real bonus and a real plus. And the stereo mic is very handy and is very useful. Cons, well, there are a couple, to be honest. It would have been great if this camera had an internal motor. As it is, you have to rely on getting lenses which are either AFS or SWM, i.e. the lenses themselves have to have internal motors for you to be able to use autofocus. That's a bit of a downer. And the other one, the main one that we noticed, is that when you have a camera which produces such vast and large file sizes, and obviously shoots video, which itself also eats up an enormous amount of space, it would have been quite nice to have had dual card slots. This has a single card slot, and of course you can have nowadays, I think certainly 16, 32, I think possibly 64 gig cards, but it would have been nice to have dual slots so that you could have saved onto both cards. That's a great way of ensuring the security of the stuff you've shot, and means basically that you're less likely to lose stuff. So with those two elements, that it could have had an internal motor and it should have dual card slots taken into account, even so, it's still a great camera and really good value for money. If you want to know more about the D5200, then go over to our website, because we've got loads of stuff on the D5200, and you'll be able to see images that we've shot with it and video that we've shot with it. And if you're looking for deals on the D5200, likewise, go to the website. We've got some great deals for the D5200 and various other bits of Nikon kit that you may be interested in. But that's that for now. If you want to come back and look at various stuff later on, we update regularly, and come back and see us soon.